Dennis O'Rourke.
Mr Speaker, New Zealand First welcomes and endorses the Parliamentary Privilege Bill without reservation. As we know, the bill seeks to implement the recommendations of the Privileges Committee concerning the question of defamation action in Gowan Lee, and the committee correctly, we think, concluded that the court's decision that defamation action represents a significant shift in the interpretation of the scope of privilege moves New Zealand away from the position in comparable Commonwealth jurisdictions. The committee's recommendation in this legislation to restore privileges scope to Parliament's previous understanding is the correct approach to take. Mr Speaker, this is a very important issue so that Parliament can carry out its duties fair from defamation, and the value of that accrues not just to MPs and ministers but to the people of New Zealand as a whole. The freedom of speech in Parliament is the essence of a robust parliamentary democracy, and of course there is a correlative responsibility for MPs and ministers to ensure that what they say in Parliament is actually accurate and reasonable. But it is not for the courts to test that. This is a matter for Parliament and for Parliament alone. Without such immunity, which must extend to advisers and also to broadcasters, it will be our democracy which suffers. Mr Speaker, the bill clarifies the definition of the term proceedings in Parliament to include where an official provides material for a minister to respond to an oral question. And that is, of course, an extremely important matter because such material is really the minister's material and it is really Parliament's material. And so it's very appropriate and necessary that the immunity should extend to that advice as well. And, Mr Speaker, something else that the bill does is to, as I've already mentioned, clarify the protections afforded to broadcasts and to reports of proceedings in Parliament. The bill ensures appropriate protection from civil or criminal liability for broadcasts and reports of parliamentary proceedings, and recognises, of course, that that is a very important medium in today's society. The bill applies absolute privilege to the live broadcast of the proceedings in Parliament, including select committee hearings now, and to delayed broadcasts or rebroadcasts of Parliament's proceedings, including select committee hearings that are made by order or under the authority of the House of Representatives. The extension of parliamentary privilege in those ways is clearly necessary to enable such broadcasts to take place without any limitations. And the third thing that the bill does is to ensure that no person will incur criminal or civil liability for making an oral or written statement that affirms or adopts or endorses words spoken in proceedings in Parliament where that statement would not, but for the proceedings in Parliament, give rise to criminal or civil liability. And this is known, as we know, as the effective repetition rule. The bill clarifies the effect of a person adopting or endorsing a statement made in the House in later comments made outside the House, and clarifies the extent to which something said by a person during proceedings in Parliament may be used to ascertain any content, effect or meaning of a statement made outside the House. In other words, the rule allows affirmation but not repetition of a comment outside Parliament, and that seems to me to be a fair and appropriate balance. Mr Speaker, overall, New Zealand First is very happy with the bill as it is and welcomes it and endorses it. As I have said, without it, the proceedings in Parliament would be severely constrained. It is clearly needed. The conclusion of the court in the Lee case was obviously wrong and must be reversed, so New Zealand First will support and vote for the bill.
Honourable Anne Tolley.
Mr Speaker, I'm going to take a very quick call. Other speakers have gone through what the bill does do and the importance of that. Mr Speaker, I have to say that it must be Christmas time because goodwill has broken out across the House, and for Trevor Mallard to be agreeing with the Attorney-General and even with Nationals welfare reforms as it relates to whiteware. And it is Christmas. It is Christmas. In fact, I thought all our Christmases are coming at once. And I have to say that I agree with Mr Mallard's comments that what the decision from the Supreme Court, in fact, I think in the advice that came to the Privileges Committee, was that it would have that decision would have a chilling effect on the advice that ministers could get in preparation for answering questions in the House. And the very heart of our parliamentary system revolves around the ability of the House to hold ministers to account, and in order for that to happen in a sensible and orderly manner, ministers need to be able to count on the fact that they can get full and frank and free advice from their officials. So the important thing with this bill is that it actually is restoring what was in place prior to the Supreme Court's decision. Mr Speaker, I have to say it was an extraordinary privilege to serve on that committee and listen to some of the very learned discussions between the people who make a habit of studying parliamentary law, but it was done in a cross-party parliamentary forum, and I think the bill that is being presented here today support entirely and wish it on its way. Merry Christmas, Mr Speaker.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Parliamentary Privilege Bill, first reading.
The question is that the Parliamentary Privilege Bill be considered by the Privileges Committee. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. Call on Government Order of the Day number 2.
Government Notice of Motion number 2.